Hi everyone. I'm conscious I'm between you and lunch, so I think, wow, from all the stats and information that's been thrown at you today, we really do need to change the current status quo when it comes to reward and financial well-being. However, we've been talking a lot about young people. Where's my clicker? Oh, there we are. We've been talking a lot about young people. Now, young people is a very broad definition. It's not your young free invincibles who've just left university. We've got those who are worrying about debt. You've got younger families who are trying to save towards their first home. You've got people in their 40s who are probably changing career, like Eve mentioned earlier on. And added to this, you as reward and benefit specialists have now got the challenge of an aging population and a workforce planning issue to also resolve. So this has created a great urgency for you all to look at this right now. However, the reality is, you as reward and benefit specialists have various options to consider over here, which lots of people are going to talk about today, from your long-term, short-term to medium-term saving options. Let's not forget, we've got to keep things fun and exciting to keep our employees engaged. We've got to tick that well-being box and make sure we ensure that our employees are protected through various insurances. So we know you've got all these challenges to overcome. Oh, and by the way, you've got to make all this information instant and available on those mobile phones for our young free invincibles at the same time. Added behind that backdrop, you've got to make sure things are legally compliant. So we've just had auto-enrollment changes. You've got to make sure all the technology you've currently got or thinking about introducing all stitch well together and doesn't create extra work for your team. We've got to have good governance around all of this. And let's not forget why we're doing all of this. We need to make sure we're engaging with our employees throughout our journey. So really, we've got some great ideas out here, but how do you make sure all of this is achieved, and how do you get the ball rolling on figuring out what goes on these lovely jam jars over here and make sure you tick all the boxes over here? Aiden is now going to talk through a case study which hopefully will give you some ideas about how you can walk away from today and implement some real changes within your organisation, no matter how big or small you are. I mean, in our round table, some people were saying, oh, you know, these case studies sound amazing. However, we're a small company with 200 employees. Budgets are quite limited. Our resources quite limited. Through the case study, hopefully Aiden will demonstrate how things can be made more equal for all your workforce, you know, that younger population from 60 to almost, you know, in their mid-40s. I'll hand over to you now.
Thanks, Dipa, and to others for setting some of the scene for what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to talk to you about a case study. One of my clients works in the media industry. The whole industry is changing. Why is it changing? It's changing because of technology and social media. So they needed to rethink what they were going to do in terms of their benefit strategy. So what did we do? So I've spoken about the change in business, and because of the change in business, they were needing to recruit different types of individuals. Those individuals tend to be younger and had different skill sets to their core individuals. Also, we know that legislation is changing. This company was impacted not only by auto-enrollment changes, but also things like tapered annual allowance. They did have a number of high flyers, and so when thinking about your workforce and who might be impacted by change, it can be at all different levels. So we wanted to actually sort of work with the client. We worked with the client to come up with a fit-for-purpose saving strategy for them, recognising that younger people actually needed different benefits and had different savings needs. I'm now going to take you through the process that we went through to help them come up with the solution. As others have already mentioned, business strategy is key to your benefit strategy. This business was changing, the core was changing, was going to be a much smaller part in the future. However, it was still going to be a big deliverer of income for that business. So you still needed to be able to cater for that core group. However, what was happening was that the developing and new areas were going to be the big areas for the future, and they needed people to work in those areas who could actually grow them. And those areas were sort of the people being recruited into them. They had different skill sets from different sectors. They weren't just recruiting from the media sector, but also from sectors like IT and also from marketing. So how do we go about it? What do we do? So we actually had a number of workshops, and we involved key people at board level from finance, HR, reward, pensions, and got together to work out what we should be doing. And what did we do? We considered the sort of demographics of the organisation and how they changed over time, and also what the issues they're likely to be facing in the future going forward. Going into some of those demographics, and these are simple things that you can do. People have spoken about the importance of data. You've already got this at your fingertips, so you can go away and do similar things to what we're demonstrating here. When we showed this slide, they understood straight away how their business had changed. Their business predominantly used to be at the right end, where they had lots of older people in the workforce. However, with the move into the new and developing areas, they were recruiting lots of younger individuals. And unfortunately, the sort of reward policy was more geared towards pensions and towards the older workforce. So it wasn't really enticing for those younger people who were coming into their company. And of course, as Dipa has said, those younger individuals had different savings needs. They came in with student debt, saving for house, as we've already known. There was a statistic yesterday where a third of millennials, when they retire, they'll be in rented accommodation. Someone said to me this morning, well, a lot of people in Europe do that. Yes, that's all well and good as long as you've got the retirement saving to help you support that. And so for the client, they needed to think about their reward spend. And what they did is they redistributed some of that reward spend towards the younger ages, because that's where they're going to be needing to recruit those people in the future. Another thing we looked at was the service, and you'll see that there's a lot of people with short periods of service, and this is probably consistent with what we see across the board within many different industries. A lot of younger people now don't stay in a job for life. They actually move on after a shorter period of time. Of course, the company recognised they need to keep them for longer than 2 years, but they accepted that people will move on because younger people will need different challenges. So again, this helped them to think about what benefits they might need for the future for those younger individuals. One of the other things that, when thinking about demographics of your organisation, is not only thinking about young people are lowly paid, well actually you've got some high flyers out there as well. And those high flyers are not going to be able to sort of save for pensions in the way that their peers previously did because of things like tapered annual allowance. Evidence from what we see with our clients is that where this money is paid in cash, this isn't put towards savings. And so in the future, these people may not have the savings pots that their peers once had to support this level of income that they want to have in the future. So for this company, they were thinking about alternative saving vehicles, so that these people who could previously save to pensions could actually save to an alternative to pension. Although not as tax efficient, still could be tax efficient in certain ways in terms of ISAs, etc. They were internal factors that we looked at. This is an external factor. Of course, when looking at the benefits package that you want to provide, you want to think about also what your peers and competitors are doing. And so from our LCP database of over 500 pension schemes, we use data to show to the client how they compare to others. I think a point for the future, we talk about pensions contribution rates and databases like this. With the drive towards savings, we'll probably be talking about savings rates databases in the future because of the trend of moving from pensions to savings and being a lot more holistic in this area. So this client also thought about how they compare to other sectors. not just the media sector, but also to the sectors where they might be recruiting these individuals from, IT and also marketing and others. And so this helped them to assess whether the contribution structure that they've got was actually sufficient for their needs compared to others, to the other industries where they were going to be recruiting from. So what have we come up with? And this is something that the client has put in place or is putting in place, and it's something that's designed for all individuals. We've spoken about a varied workforce. We've spoken about different savings needs, and so your model for the future needs to be able to cater for those different savings needs. In relation to this, what have we put in or putting in? We've got a savings solution that caters for younger people coming out with student debt, etc. People who want to save for houses, LISA. We've also got something there that's going to cater for those individuals who can't always save to pensions, so something called a general investment account. And for this client, we're doing it all under one platform with one provider. You can do this with multiple providers, but for this client, they wanted to do it with one provider. That's going to make it administratively easier for both the employee and for the employer. In relation to monthly payroll deductions, they will all come out and be dealt with through this one platform and be directed into pension, into ISA, into lifetime ISA. And also for the actual employee, they're going to benefit from better commercial rates than they would get on their own. Of course, we all save for ISAs, but if we buy in bulk through an employer, then we'll actually get better commercial terms. And that means that people are saving more money, getting greater return for their investments. So this is something that's been put in place to cater for a changing workforce, that's going to cater for both younger people and older people. We mustn't forget that pension is a mainstay as well, and this company is still providing a generous pension scheme, which is also enrolment compliant. But what they're also doing is making sure that their savings platform is fit for purpose for the future and is one that's going to sort of be future-proofed and actually align with their business strategy. Now, as I said, you can actually do this yourselves. Simple steps, getting people together, getting the data together. So you can take that as a takeaway and go away and do it in your own organisation if you're considering that. Of course, key to all of this, though, is engagement with those individuals who are going to save. You need to engage with them across their whole savings path, and you can use the provider to help you support that and to support the good work that you're already doing in your organisations. But to touch a bit more on engagement, I'm going to hand over to Dipa to talk in a little bit more detail about it.
So I think when it comes to employee engagement and technology, the two really go hand in hand, both offline and online communication. I mean, you know, we talked about the strategy and how we figured out the multi-saving solution, which tick both short, medium and long-term savings. However, we really do need to support our employees in an offline environment as well. You know, and we shouldn't downplay pensions just yet. Your employees are engaged, but not fully engaged, because all they're thinking about is the savings that they need to have towards their short-term objectives. I mean, we could do a whole session on engagement, but the key thing is once you've identified your gaps, so what is your employee benefit, saving and well-being strategy now, and is it fit for purpose in the future? That will identify the gaps. Look at what engagement and communication you currently have in place. I mean, we were talking in some of the breakout sessions. Some of you are tied into long-term technology contracts. You have internal communication to deal with. So document, audit everything that you've got and think about actually how is it engaging with your employees. I mean, we do this a lot for our client, and wouldn't it be fantastic if UK PLC could offer a holistic solution to their employees which covers the solutions Aiden talked about, but also allowed employees to view their personal debt and savings and assets in one place. There's a massive gap at the moment, and we as employers aren't thinking about this holistically, but we do tend to go down the solution route thinking, great, there's an issue here, we need to fix it, how are we going to fix it quickly? We need to be thinking about all these things that we've covered here from your employees' perspective. The things over here, you know, your employees are focused on number one. Number two, sometimes together, you know, especially we're going to see a lot of 16-year-olds in the workforce now because not everyone is going to university because of the cost of student tuition fees, and then they're thinking about savings. Your role as an employer is to offer one cohesive user experience to your employees. And you can only do that by understanding what you've currently got in place. A lot of the time, in the project that Aiden talked about, you know, that has spanned, by the time we finish, 2 years. And, you know, Andrew talked earlier on from JLT about projects being a couple of months to implement, you know, to bring people on board on the journey, not just to implement a technology or a medium or short-term savings solution. You do need to think about this in sort of, you know, 12 months to 2 years as a project which is ever evolving. You might not achieve this on day one, but you can slowly nudge away, making sure that your employees are engaged at the right time. And when it comes to communication, you know, historically in the flex world, we've done lifestyle events. Actually, they're so passé now, you know, people have children, but still continue working throughout maternity leave sometimes. And, you know, nudging them at that time might not be appropriate. They've got other priorities. We've got to make the concept of employee benefits, saving and well-being a more fluid concept, more accessible to your employees when they're on the move in their personal time. And it is achievable. There are some great technology solutions out there. However, you've got to find the one that fits your organization and your definition of younger workforce. You know, I talked about the 16 to the mid-40s. Within your sector, within the area that you compete within, that definition may be narrower or broader, and looking at your data is key to making sure you get the right outcomes for your employees. In terms of where you start, you know, we've talked about stock take, review what you've already got. Think about what your people care about. You know, the reality is, it's how much can I afford to save, how quickly can I access it, which then drives where they put the money. Do focus groups with your employees. We've just commissioned a piece of research and got the results through on Friday. Exit interviews are still used as the main form of getting feedback. Those people have already left the building. Why are you asking them about the benefits that, you know, and the reward package? Ask them while they're engaged. Ask them throughout the process. I mean, a lot of organizations have Yammer, which is like Facebook for work. You have online intranet forums, line manager meetings where you can constantly engage and ask questions. But while you're asking those questions, you're also promoting what you already have in place. And, you know, in Aiden's case study, this particular media company were moving from print to digital. That's a massive change to their organization. How is your business growing and changing, and how does your well-being and benefit strategy support that? And, you know, from that, you'll be able to quickly identify exactly what you need and then implement, then go and do something about it. Spend 12 months, spend 18 months doing all those things up there. And the bit at the end, yeah, you can do it within 3 to 6 months. That doesn't take long, but it will be successful if you've got everyone engaged within your business, because they'll be driving the message home for you. And we've got 4 minutes and 30 seconds left for questions, Debbie.
That is, thank you very much. That was very interesting. I thought there. So we've got a few questions, I think, coming up on Slido. At least I hope we do, given that we've got a good 4 minutes left. Have you both got lapel mics? If you'd like to come and join me, then we can talk together. Although I'm going to battle to see the questions from this distance. I'll read it up from here. Right, lifetime allowances. Aidan, I think you touched them when you were talking. So the question is, are you seeing employers dealing with lifetime allowances? Are most paying cash instead? And for those who aren't, what are they doing?
Most are paying as cash. And some also are meeting the extra NI obligation as well. For those who aren't, I've spoken about different options here. One client I was talking to last month, they have people where they're paying cash instead of instead of the pension contribution. And what they're going to do is actually going to force everyone to put their money into an ISA or a general investment account, and then it's up to them what they do with it. They can take it out and have it as cash as well, but we think through inertia that people will actually start saving and leaving their money there, and so that'll be an alternative to pensions.
So you talked about ISAs there. In terms of your clients, did your client find that the LISA was popular among staff? How popular did they find the ISA?
It's still growing. It's still growing. The LISA, as we know, is in its infancy as a potential option. But as Dipa said, through the focus groups that we do, we know people are very interested in this option. So it will be growing, and ISAs will also be growing to meet the different savings needs across the life frame of an employee. We had the poll this morning where people were saying about short and medium term savings needs. An ISA will be ideal for that. And for this particular company, they were redistributing spend away from pensions and actually putting it more towards savings options to cater for those short to medium term options.
And in that case, is the employer putting in a contribution as well, or do you lose the contribution if you do an ISA, not a pension?
That they're introducing a flex contribution, which people will be free to put into the ISA. But some companies are actually sort of putting money in themselves and actually think about producing matching contributions akin to a pension scheme. So we are seeing clients thinking about that as well.
Okay, so when you said flex contribution, what did you mean by that?
So within their flex pot, employees get a sum of money. So with this particular client, we did lots of cost modelling to say, well, what if they could put that in towards a short-term, medium-term saving option? And in the end, it was a combination of the two that we opted for. I mean, it's quite interesting. LISAs, whatever they're called, you know, depending on who you speak to, it is very popular when you talk about it at events like this.
Exactly, yeah.
On the ground, when we're talking to clients, it actually complements what they're already doing. So it's not a replacement. And I think earlier on in one of the sessions, you know, employees do value being in a pension, but they also recognise that their employers are not offering something in the short and medium term. And, you know, all of this stuff just sort of has a more rounded savings view on it, giving employees what they want and more choice and flexibility in the future.
Sorry, I keep throwing in my own questions here, but the rates that you now get in the workplace for workplace ISA or LISA, is it better than on the high street? Because that's what the problem was before. You could get better out in the high street.
Yes.
They are better in the workplace.
They're better in the workplace.
They're competitive now.
They're competitive now. And I think for our clients, where we run these tender exercises, we're seeing very competitive rates come back, because we're not only thinking, when thinking about pensions design, people are moving away from trust-based arrangements and they're moving to master trusts, and they're getting the opportunity to get these funds coming across from the trust-based to the master trust. And that's a further incentive to the whole organisation to offer better rates for the corporate ISAs as well.
And I think that there has been a sea change. I mean, when we looked at Flex 15 years ago, you know, people were very tentative about what it is, what technology is, and suddenly the cost of technology came down, putting stuff in, and we're seeing the same trend in this space now. So corporate ISAs were talked about for many years, but now all of a sudden the providers are really geared up to offering this alternative savings solution. So as employers, once you've identified the gaps, leverage off what what the product providers have got out there, and the technology's really moved on in this space. It's very focused on apps, you know, people being able to personalize their dashboard and things like that, which wasn't really there 5 or 6 years ago.
It's fair to say, yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. I'm going to draw it to a close at that point, because we realise it's lunchtime and the time is up, and I never try and get between people and their stomachs and lunch at this particular time. So can we say thank you to both Dipa and Aiden?